Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Miracle Network's Wednesday meditation gathering. I'm so glad you're all here to share this time together. This week we have Kenny Mammarella-D'Cruz um, who will be leading us in meditation. Then we have 20 minutes of silence. After that, we open it up for sharing. Over to you, Kenny.
Thank you. Good to see you all again. It's always a treat to be here. Today, we're going to go to Manual 27 from the manual, What is Death? Death is the central dream from which all illusions stem. It is not madness to think of life as being born, aging, losing vitality, and dying in the end. We have asked this question before, but now we need to consider it more carefully. It is the one fixed, unchangeable belief of the world that all things in it are born only to die. This is regarded as the way of nature, not to be raised to question, but to be accepted as the natural law of life. The cynical, the changing and unsure, the undependable and the unsteady, waxing and waning in a certain way upon a certain path. All this is taken as the will of God. And no one asks if a benign creator could will this. In this perception of the universe as God created it, it would be impossible to think of him as loving. For who has decreed that all things pass away, ending in dust and disappointment and despair, can but be feared. He holds your little life in his hands, but by a thread, ready to break it off without regret or care, perhaps today, or if he waits, yet is the ending certain. Who loves such a God knows not of love because he has denied that life is real. Death has become life's symbol. His world is now a battleground where contradiction reigns and opposites make endless war. Where there is death, is peace impossible. Death is the symbol of the fear of God. His love is blotted out in the idea, which holds it from awareness, like a shield held up to obscure the sun. The grimness of the symbol is enough to show it cannot coexist with God. It holds an image of the Son of God in which he is laid to rest in devastation's arms, where worms wait to greet him and to last a little while by his destruction. Yet the worms as well are doomed to be destroyed as certainly, and so do all things live because of death. Devouring is nature's law of life. God is insane and fear alone is real. The curious belief that there is part of dying things that may go on, apart from what will die, does not proclaim a loving God, nor re-establish any grounds for trust. If death is real for anything, there is no life. Death denies life. But if there is reality in life, death is denied. No compromise in this is possible. There is either a God of fear or one of love. The world attempts 1,000 compromises and will attempt 1,000 more. Not one can be acceptable to God's teachers, because not one could be acceptable to God. He did not make death, because he did not make fear. Both are equally meaningless to him. The reality of death is firmly rooted in the belief that God's Son is a body. And if God created bodies, death would indeed be real, but God would not be loving. There is no point at which the contrast between the perception of the real world and that of the world of illusions becomes more sharply evident. Death is indeed the death of God, if he is love, and now his own creation must stand in fear of him. He is not father, but destroyer. He is not creator, but avenger. Terrible his thoughts and fearful his image. To look on his creations is to die. And the last to be overcome will be death, of course. Without the idea of death, there is no world. All dreams will end with this one. This is salvation's final goal, the end of all illusions. And in death are all illusions born. What can be born of death and still have life? But what is born of God and still can die? The inconsistencies, the compromises, and the rituals the world fosters in its vain attempts to cling to death and yet to think real yet to think love real are mindless magic, ineffectual and meaningless. God is, and in him all created things must be eternal. Do you not see that otherwise he has an opposite, and fear would be as real as love? Teacher of God, your one assignment could be stated thus: accept no compromise in which death plays a part. Do not believe in cruelty, nor let attack conceal the truth from you. What seems to die has but been misperceived and carried to illusion. Now it becomes your task to let the illusion be carried to the truth. Be steadfast, but in this, be not deceived by the reality of any changing form. Truth neither moves nor wavers nor sinks down to death and disillusion. And what is the end of death? Nothing but this: the realization that the Son of God is guiltless now and forever. Nothing but this. But do not let yourself forget, it is not less than this.
Open your eyes and come back into the room. We have 17 minutes left for sharing your reflections and your questions. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand, or you can use the electronic hand at the bottom of the screen, and I'll invite you to take yourself off mute. If you'd like to share. Linda.
Yes, thank you, Kenny. That was lovely. It brought me to silence and peace. Yes, it was really, really lovely. And I talk to people about there's no death. By the time I've got to my age, I don't really care very much what anyone thinks anymore. So I do say that this is just a body. There is no death. And it's one of my favorite talking points that everyone will be thinking about when they get to my age. So yes, thank you for all your introduction to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
Fabian, would you like to share?
Yes, thank you very much, Kenny. The talk was excellent. The meditation was very good. I've been part of a Course in Miracle group since the 90s in Scotland. We had a lovely study group, but people passed away and left the area. So my question is, yes, I'm quite clear that death is not real and it's an invention of the ego, but I'm very still very affected by the suffering of people through death, like innocent children being killed in Ukraine and Palestine, and it does affect me. I know it's not real. They're not really dying or anything, but so how can I get over the suffering that is very present in this area and accept it? And I have a lot of compassion for all these people. I don't judge anybody, but it's really sad to see these innocent children being killed all the time as a side effect of wars. And so I would like to have your opinion about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fabian. I guess for me, my earliest experiences of death was my fear of the adults who I loved being upset and not being able to fix it. And then as I grew and realized that I need to accept their pain and that it's not for me to fix or to haggle with death or to kind of want to create some miracle, then I moved into my own acceptance and realized that I can feel, I relate to what you're saying about people in Scotland moving away and leaving their bodies. And for me, I realized the pain in my body when someone was no longer in my life was almost as if a part of me that couldn't come alive with someone anymore just died. It was just in limbo or in grief because there was no place for it to come alive. And I'm from Africa, and I've been around, and I've worked with Mother Teresa in Calcutta with dying men, actually, in the home for the dying. And their relationship to death was a lot more accepting and loving. And for me, when I see the tragedies of other people, and especially children. For some reason, it's especially children. All I can do is breathe love into my body and send it to them. And I do wonder at what stage they left their bodies. And I do believe that they're not there for all the pain. Because I know that in times of trauma, I've literally left my body. And even in my work, a lot of people will literally leave their body in times of trauma and then come back. So I guess there are two things. Number one is I can only send them love. I can only be love and send them love. Because for me, that's the true frequency to operate on and the relationship I choose to have to this. And the second one is to, I guess, believe that whatever experience they were here to have or to enable me to have, in the name of love, that has happened. And it's a very fine line for me to allow things to be in the name of love from a much bigger picture, rather than coming from the darkness of it all. And I can't say it's easy at times, but this is where I need to perpetually breathe and get present and be love and share love. That's the best I've got.
Thank you, Kenny. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who'd like to share? Woman, take yourself off mute.
Yes, thank you very much. Just yesterday, I thought I'd go down to the old shipyard I used to have a boat in, but it's a boatyard, not a shipyard, and see if any of the people I knew were still there. So I went down, and it was closed. I thought that was maybe lunchtime, and it was lunchtime, and had a look round, and there was boats there that were wooden and were sort of falling apart. There was metal ones that were rusting, and bits and pieces scattered about. But there were also beautiful ones. There was one on the slip, and it was in lovely condition, a wooden boat. And another one was for sale, and it was in prime condition. And after looking around, there was a seat you could look out over the water, over Strangford Loch. And it was very peaceful, and I was sitting there. And it suddenly struck me that the boat's in good condition. The owners loved them, devoted a lot of time and effort to keep them in perfect condition. Whereas the ones that were falling to bits, their owners had either passed away and nobody loved their boats, and they were falling to bits. And I suddenly realized that that's the way I should see people's bodies and my own. Because I thought, well, if the ego tells me doing this, doing that, I'll have to get rid of it or ignore it or do something about it. And I couldn't understand how loving type people were always saying, I have to go to the gym now. I said, why are you going to the gym? It's only a body. But then it sort of I was doing myself no favours thinking like that. And those books just woke that up in me. You know, normally you can't ignore your body. Do your bit, look after it. If you're fat, go on a diet. Put some love into yourself and look after it while you've got it, because you'd be no use going about in a wheelchair trying to convince people that, you know, God is love. And it's strange how that can happen. And you know, how can I forgive my ego self? And just this morning, the answer was, it's not real. You can't. If I try and forgive my ego, I've made it real, and I can't forgive something that's as evil as an ego gets up to if I think it's real. But if I realize it's nothing real about it, I just have to forgive myself for for making it in the first place, or listening to it in the first place. So it killed two birds with one stone, really. So it was a, I don't know if that makes much sense, but thank you very much.
Evelyn, take yourself off mute.
Thank you, Dan. Kenny, thank you. That was a very powerful reading. Could you tell me, please, where that was from? I missed where it was from.
I think Kenny may have lost his connection for a second there. I believe that it was Manual 27. That's what I thought he said in the beginning, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he'll tell us when he's come back.
Yes, thank you, Teresa. Yes, I'm sure you're right. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Yes. Would anyone like to share?
Whoops, sorry about that.
There you
I
are.
think my internet just died, and then we're back again as if by magic. And for me, I've decided my relationship to so much about life is experience, including the bad and the ugly, not just the good. And my God, I have got to know myself in fear and in pain and in suffering and in bliss, and the fear of having and being so much love, the fear of losing it. And I've just got to know myself. And I've kind of like accepted my body. It took a few decades. I've accepted my body. I'm making the most of my body within reason, not using it as a sales pitch or anything, but I need a good vehicle. And exactly as you say, Norman, if I ignore it and I'm going around being love and light and wonderful and all of that, meanwhile, I look like some falling apart schlock, then I'm not much of a sales pitch to myself or to other people. And why choose that experience? I chose that experience, and now I'm choosing a healthy body experience. I'm going to be 60 this year, and I'm taking it very seriously because I intend to reverse the aging process. And why not give it a shot if that's an experience I choose? So yeah, it's my power to choose my relationship to everything and to feel my feelings and get to know myself. And for me, that's the object of the exercise, or that's the gig I'm on at the moment.
Thank you, Kenny. Kenny, how do you reverse the aging process? I'd like some of that.
You know, I think I remember when we brought what's his name, Jerry Jampolsky, and the whole thing about attitudinal healing, and a lot of it for me is my attitude, my relationship to things. It's not fearing my body, but it's finding out what's going on. And I could have the slightest little thing. Oh my God, my eyes are dry. Am I going blind? Why is one puffy? Why is one looking like Columbo? Maybe I need to have operations and I'm going blind. And then the other day I went to a specialist and it's just blepharitis and I need a spray for this and some drops for that. And I needn't go down that path. So it's information rather than fear, and giving myself love and being responsible for my relationship to things. And good genes help.
Who'd like to share? Dennis, take yourself off mute.
I was born September 1940 in London. And what I remember is they used to say, when the bombs were dropping, if you hear the explosion, you're alive, and if you don't, you're dead. What I remember about that whole period, an awful lot of love and laughter. People laughed at everything. If someone got bombed out, it was laughter. Never took anything serious. And I think, never forget to laugh and living in the moment. They all lived for the moment in time, knowing that death was seconds away. And I still remember the laughter and the love, and it's a pity the laughter's gone now, because they laughed at everything and nobody took anything serious at all. There was one beautiful thing that happened. This couple had been bombed out, and they were living in another couple's house. And we were in the big air raid shelter in the road, which was brick built. And there was a mighty explosion. And this guy looked out and he saw the house he was living in with this other chap completely gone. And he turned around and said, "I'm fed up with living with you people. I've had enough of you. You know, you're terrible people, you know." And the guy went sort of loopy for a minute. And he said, "That was your house that's gone." And he said, "I don't want to live there anymore, you know, I've had enough." And I just thought it was hilarious. The humor, the love for everybody. There was no difference. We were all going through the same thing at the same time.
Mm.
And the other saying was, if someone died, and I used to imagine it as a kid, they'd be pushing up the daisies beneath the earth.
Do you know, I wonder whether you and I have something in common, and that's that we have lost things, and we've been around people who've lost things. I'm a refugee from Uganda, and my father was on the death list. And when we were followed and bugged and had to go into hiding, we had death threats. And we didn't know who was alive and who was dead and what happened. So we started again. And I wonder whether, because we've been there, it's a lot easier to accept. And I find in life, it's my fear of things that causes me pain, my attachment to things, and my need to control. That's what causes pain. But having been through it, it's like, this is life. And I feel the tragedy of inappropriate, what will people think? You shouldn't laugh when someone else is crying. It's tragic, because then everyone has to be, you know, like put on a sad act rather than be joyous about pretty much everything. Thank you so much for that, Den.
Okay, we've come to the end of our time together. Take yourself off mute and show your appreciation to Kenny. Thank you, Kenny. That was wonderful.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you very much,
you.
Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you.